how much is this Western Conference Finals being hyped right now? Let me read you some quotes before I get into the big game breakdown for tonight. One Western assistant told ESPN, quote, "This is the finals." One Eastern Conference executive told ESPN, quote, "This has the chance to go down as one of the best series of the past decade." A Western Conference scout said, "This is the start of another Magic versus Bird." Yeah, there's a lot of hype for the Spurs and the Thunder. Let's talk about it. Teddy covers WagerTalk.com. Game 1 tonight. And looking at the Odds Logic live odds screen. Get a free trial, by the way. OddsLogic.com/Teddy. Real simple. Free 7-day trial. Just sign up. Takes about a minute. And check out the live odds product. It's cool. I use it every day. I recommend it. Again, OddsLogic.com/Teddy. So look at the Odds Logic live odds screen right now. OKC -6.5, the prevailing point spread. Total here sitting in the 221.5 range. We're seeing a little bit of under money come in on the total after it's been bet up from the openers. So I do not expect this total to go any higher than it is now. And it's worth noting, when the money comes one way at the open and then kind of drifts the other way as the betting markets progress, as we get closer to tip-off, I tend to expect the first money, the sharpest money, that's the money I'm most interested in. So our first money came over. Now that we've gotten to 221 and 221.5, even 222s out there, now the markets have stabilized. But that first money did come for over in this ballgame. And that makes sense to this bettor. First, I'm going to talk about the side a little bit. I'm not going to talk about the side too much. I do have the side for sale tonight at WagerTalk.com. Just visit my homepage, www.buzz/DC. That is my best bet for Monday in NBA action. I'm on the side. But I'm going to talk about the case to be made here. The case to be made for San Antonio is looking at OKC. They have not been brilliant in these game ones. They've been good in some of them, but it hasn't been consistent. In fact, they've lost a couple of game ones. They lost 2 of them last year on their home floor as big favorites. You do worry about the long layoff for the Thunder. And even with Jalen Williams returning, you say, that makes OKC better. This is a really deep team. You do worry, at least I worry a little bit for the Thunder, about finding that chemistry and rhythm with their second leading scorer now back in the lineup after something of an extended absence through the first couple of rounds. He did play 2 games, but he really hasn't been a factor for the Thunder in a couple of months. So Jalen Williams and his transition back into the lineup for OKC is something of concern for this bettor. And of course, we talk about the regular season success, San Antonio. There aren't many teams that go into OKC and say, we're confident. We can go in and beat this team. And certainly the Spurs have proven that they can beat the Thunder in meaningful games throughout the course of the regular season. That being said, the most recent of those games came before the All-Star break. And if you're looking to make bets in May based on stuff that happened in the NBA in February, good luck to you, for sure. If you're making a case for OKC, you're making a case that this is the championship caliber squad. There's something to be said for a team that's been there, done that, and now in position to do it again. Obviously 8-0 so far here in the postseason. And unlike San Antonio, the question is rest versus rust. And that's always the question that we ask in the NBA playoffs when you see a scenario like this, where the Spurs have played a longer series in the first round and a longer series in the second round, obviously, than OKC has swept both of their first 2 opponents. So that rest versus rust question. OKC's been good at times. They also lost twice, in these game ones, including game 1 of the finals last year. And I believe it was the game 1 of the Nuggets series they lost at home last year as well. So we've seen really good performances from OKC in these game 1. We've seen really bad performances from OKC in these game 1s. Anyhow, from a side standpoint, there's a legit case to be made for both of those teams. I made I think, a reasonably strong case for one of them. Again, check out my homepage, wt.buzz/TC. I do want to talk about the total, and I want to give you guys a play for the total for tonight. And it really is an interesting scenario because from a pace standpoint, not like the Spurs have been running up and down the court or OKC. But the Thunder are a team whose defense leads to their offense. They create turnovers, they get out in transition, and boy, they score quickly in transition. And San Antonio does the same thing. So even though from a pace standpoint, we're talking about two teams that don't have ridiculous numbers and aren't, flying up and down the court here in the postseason. San Antonio's been fairly fast, but not OKC. But from a how is the game going to play out standpoint, I think we're going to see fast breaks. I think we're going to see transition buckets for these two teams. And when you talk about what San Antonio needs to do to pull the upset in this series, it's not about playing half-court offense, And when you talk about what OKC needs to do to beat the Spurs and to handle Wembanyama, it's not about playing half-court offense. When Wemby's the cheat code, on the defensive end of the court. And we saw that repeatedly in the first two series here in the postseason for San Antonio, where opponents not just missing shots, but altering their whole offensive game plan out of concern for Wemby smacking the ball around and knocking their shots out of bounds. So it's definitely a scenario in which neither team is most comfortable in half-court sets. Both teams want to push pace. And when both teams want to push pace, I think that's why we saw the money for the over in the opener, from the opener. When both teams want to push pace, I ain't playing unders. All right. Even in the NBA postseason, even between two elite defensive teams, we talk about what matters most for totals. Free throw shooting. All right. Free throw attempts, to be real, where the points are scored with the shot clock off. Obviously, 3-point shooting. When teams combine to make 33 pointers, a big difference than teams combine to make 15. But pace, the number of possessions, matters more than anything when it comes to NBA totals. And I do think we're likely to see a fairly fast pace tonight in Game 1 in OKC that has this better looking over the total. So there you have it. Game 1 thoughts. All right. And from a prop standpoint, really, Game 1s, I'm not dying to play a lot of props. I'm really not. And, I like to see how the matchups situate in a postseason scenario. If I'm going to play anything, I'll probably play Jalen Williams under. I don't know that he's going to get the type of playing time and or the type of production that he had in the regular season. And certainly, we talk about San Antonio and their defense on the wing against guys like Jalen Williams. I think it works out well. So Williams is a guy I might target under tonight if I'm playing a prop. But mostly Game 1s, there's not a lot of props that I want to bet. I'm going to watch and learn and see what we're going to do for Game 2, Game 3, Game 4, and beyond. So Williams under, Jalen Williams under, it's a lean for this evening. We do like the over. And, of course, if you want the side, check out my homepage, www.buzz.tc, or just visit the website, WagerTalk.com. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Have a great Monday. Really appreciate all the comments, the likes, the follows, and best of luck with all your bets Monday night and beyond. Thanks for watching WagerTalk TV, and stay tuned right here on this channel for more quality video content. Cheers.